As we continue on this wonderful morning, we have another teaching award to recognize. And just so all understand the import of this marvelous award, over 20 years ago, we had a terrific faculty member here. Many of us remember him, James Paddock, who died suddenly, prematurely. He had been a professor of international business here at the Fletcher School, as well as having served as the academic dean. He was a mainstay of the institution in so many ways, and he was, I am told, regarded above all as a superb teacher at the Fletcher School. So when he passed prematurely in consultation with his family, we have established the annual Paddock Award for teaching. This award goes to the professor at Fletcher who is acknowledged for excellence in a given year for teaching, and it is unique because it is selected solely by the students of the Fletcher School. There's no input, no thumb on the scales. This one is from students to a faculty member they deeply, deeply esteem. And it is therefore appropriate that I would ask Kirsten Zeiter, a member of the Fletcher Student Council, to step forward, and she will make the announcement of who the students have chosen.
Good morning, everyone, and congratulations, classmates. At Fletcher, we have the great fortune of being surrounded by faculty of the highest caliber, whose intellect and passion for their work inspire us daily. I am thus humbled and honored to present to you all today this year's winner of the Paddock Teaching Award, Dr. Julie Schaffner. As the only professor to have the honor of receiving this award for a second time, there are, of course, countless things that can be said about Professor Schaffner's excellence in teaching. And while I could thus speak to you at great length about all of the reasons students have selected her for this award, I will try my best to keep my remarks unbiased, efficient, and precise. It's a little econometrics humor for you this morning. Professor Schaffner has a gift of being able to take subjects that are, for many students at first, full of apprehension or anxiety, and teach them in a way that makes every student feel confident in their ability to learn and succeed. With Professor Schaffner, complex material is broken down into its component parts and then brought together again in a way that makes even the most difficult methods feel manageable. She explains concepts through both mathematical and then intuitive terms, and then contextualizes them in their application to international affairs. Most importantly, though, she inspires us to challenge ourselves, ask tough questions, and look at our work in new ways. Professor Schaffner's dedication to her teaching is also exemplified by the abundance and quality of original resources she has created for her students. Now, Professor Schaffner has taught us that econometrics is the art of weaving together the stories of the world through numbers. So, I thought it fitting to tell you all a story of those famous resources through a few numbers. For econometrics alone, Professor Schaffner's online research page features a grand total of 1,209 PowerPoint slides, 10.8 hours of review and lecture videos, and no less than 56 sets of study questions and handouts. But as Professor Schaffner also taught us, the numbers alone aren't everything. We must use our social science reasoning to bring life to the story. And all of these resources tell us about a professor who is uniquely and deeply committed to ensuring that each student has what they need to succeed. In fact, students frequently revisit her materials for other coursework, for their thesis research, and for internships. And this year, I have even received emails from 2 Fletcher alumni asking if I could please send along the legendary resources from Professor Schaffner so they could brush up on their econometrics skills for a new job. This is one of the many ways that Professor Schaffner's teaching remains with all of her students long after completing her courses. And of course, it's more than just lectures and online resources. Professor Schaffner is well known for going to great lengths to make herself available to students as a teacher and a mentor. She schedules extra office hours during exams and provides careful and thorough feedback on each assignment. She advises several students on their thesis research and provides guidance as we determine our next professional steps. What's more, each year, she extends an invitation to students to spend Thanksgiving at her home, a generosity that is especially appreciated by those of us here who are attending school far from home and appreciate such warm welcome over the holiday season. Professor Schaffner's tireless dedication to her students is astounding to all who have the pleasure to learn with her, and a model of excellence in teaching. It is for these and countless other reasons that it is my honor to present Dr. Julie Schaffner with the 25th Annual James L. Paddock Teaching Award. Please join me in congratulating Professor Schaffner.
Great. Wow. It is truly lovely to receive an award from students that I enjoy and admire as much as I do you Fletcher students. It's also an honor to receive an award in the name of James Paddock, who is someone I would very much like to emulate. So thank you very much for the award, for your many very kind words, and for this opportunity to celebrate an important occasion with you. Well, I suspect that change is at least a little bit on the minds of everyone in this tent. Yeah. And good change that we want not just to be part of, but to help catalyze, shape, and propel, to lead, if you will. For the graduates, some of the most immediate changes have to do with growing into new jobs and responsibilities, identifying new career directions, next jobs. But I know that these are just first steps toward the larger changes that you want to be part of. You want to bring change around the world that helps people live healthier lives, start new businesses, grow new crops, take better care of the environment, and live in greater comfort, peace, and security. En route to those changes, I suspect you will also have to lead change in the government, non-governmental, and business organizations that you work for and partner with, because I think many Fletcher graduates end up working at the interfaces between worlds, between research and practice, public sector and private sector, development and security, and end up having to lead the kind of institutional change that makes real collaboration possible across those cultural divides. And the graduates aren't the only ones here who are interested in leading change. We all are, and we all have opportunity in diverse venues. One venue in which I have the great privilege of leading change is Fletcher classrooms. I see my mission in teaching as one of leading an important kind of change, expansion and development of the mental models and analytical instincts that students bring to their study of the world. And I love being part in that way of helping prepare them to go on after Fletcher and do an even better job of making the world a better place. So I think we have change on our mind, and I'd like to spend these last couple minutes with you sharing 6 suggestions for leading change. They thought it would be 7. My suggestion 1, define the change you want to lead, and please be specific. You know that being specific is important because it sets you up better for practical analysis. In this case, it requires you to identify all the people who might need to be involved in this change that you envision and understand all that the change might mean for their lives and for yours. That will help you identify obstacles that you might need to tear down that would otherwise prevent them or you from embracing change. Now, at this point, it would be really great if we could discuss a case study together. But I wasn't allowed to set up a trunk site for required pre-commencement readings or videos. So, I'm going to ask you to use your own lives as case studies. What are 1 or 2 of the changes that are on your mind or your hearts that come to mind that you want to be part of shaping or propelling in the next months or years? And who all might need to be involved in that change you have in mind? Well, I hope some specific changes come to mind because I'm going to invite you now to please turn to somebody next to you and share one of these. Yet my students are chuckling because we do this in class, but I'm actually dead serious. I want some good participation here, and I expect my former students and my colleagues to be good role models. Really, you've got 10 seconds, and I'd like you to turn to somebody and share some of the change that's on your mind. Awesome, you'll all get very high marks. Well, I hope you have some changes in mind as we move forward. Suggestion 2 is invite participation. Suggestion 3 is take risks. And I just tried to model those 2 things for you. Well, you know that inviting participation and partnership is important because we can't design opportunities for change that people will embrace unless we can see the change from their perspective. And you know that taking risk is important because if you're going to add to knowledge or practice, you've got to be working at the margins of what's already well understood, and that's inherently risky. But inviting real participation can be hard because it can mean having to herd cats, and it can mean inviting suggestions that are going to sound like criticisms, and that hurts our pride. And taking risks is hard because, well, risk means a real potential for failure, and nobody really likes to fail. So sometimes we have to prod ourselves in the direction of inviting participation and taking risks. I recently learned that these 2 efforts can be complementary. Over the last 2 years, I've told my development economics students that I was experimenting with new ways of doing class. You could call it flipping the classroom. And I didn't have it worked out, and I would really appreciate their feedback and suggestions. Their wonderful response to that invitation made it so much easier for me to take risks. I think they saw the opportunity for their experience to count not only for themselves, but also for me and for future generations of Fletcher students. And so they dove in with even greater creative energy, and they gave me the license to be imperfect and to fail if necessary for a good cause. So think about inviting participation and taking risks together. Suggestion 4 is to tear down psychological obstacles to change by paying attention to details. And suggestion 5 is to encourage collective change by building trust. Recent research in behavioral economics points to a variety of biases and imperfections in the way we human beings make choices that can hold us back from embracing new ways of doing life, even when that would be very good for us. And intriguingly suggests that there can be great potential to increase our uptake of change by paying attention to details, providing us with nudges. For example, by simplifying choices, sending reminders, or offering us opportunities to commit ahead of time to some good new kind of change behavior like saving, and then gently holding us accountable to follow through. So, paying attention to details can matter when you're working with human beings. Trust matters because some kinds of change involve a sort of cooperation, where one person might not be willing to undertake the change unless she trusts that people around her will change too. Building trust is difficult. It can involve anything from sharing meals together to hammering out the details of rules and monitoring and enforcement mechanisms that everybody finds fair. And of course, it also requires that you're willing to trust and to be trustworthy. Well, I suspected that these matters of psychology and trust would be important also in my efforts to flip the development economics classroom. The big idea there is that if students essentially teach themselves the basic material before coming to class, then you can use class time to engage with the material at a higher and more practically applied level. But I knew that if I didn't trust that students had taught themselves the basics before class, that I would find myself sliding back into more and more of that lecture material that just reviews the basics, and then they'd have less and less reason to prepare for class, and the whole thing would unravel. So I felt the burden was on me to make preparation for class as psychologically easy as possible with, pared down materials, clear instructions, easy access, and to offer some nudges in the right direction in the form of online quiz questions that the students had to answer on the day's material before coming to class. And I know that answering those questions was probably really annoying, and I regret that. But I also suspect that at times they did help students who are very busy human beings follow through on their own very real good intentions to come prepared to class. And perhaps more important, they helped me have the confidence I needed to behave in a trustworthy fashion rather than backsliding into old ways of doing things. So brainstorm about nudges and about trust. Finally, suggestion 6. In leading change, be yourself, but work at being your better self. When I first started teaching, I thought too much about what I wasn't. I was not a comedian. I was not a flashy show person. I thought I needed that to be successful, and I let the weight of that prevent me from connecting with students. Fortunately, over the years, I learned to embrace my own style of teaching, which is grounded basically in compulsive organization and and I hope also an interest in seeing things from my students' perspective. And teaching certainly became a lot more fun and I think more effective. So I encourage you to embrace your many strengths and even your quirks and be yourself and have fun. But I also urge you to work daily at being your better self. My default self tends to think that if I'm going to teach students how to think better, then I need to pour all of my energy into criticism and suggestions for improvement. But my better self knows that students also need to hear what they're doing right and they need to be encouraged. So I have tried over the years to become more purposeful about verbalizing positive feedback, which is entirely sincere, but just easy not to verbalize in the rush of things. Now students, those comments on your first drafts, that was me trying to be purposeful about verbalizing positive feedback. So clearly, I'm still a work in progress. Which is why it's all the more wonderful to have this final opportunity to verbalize some heartfelt positive feedback. Fletcher graduates of 2016, you are awesome. You are bright and passionate, creative and kind. You are remarkably courageous. I admire you greatly. And I know I speak for all of my colleagues when I say that we look forward with great anticipation to the lives you're going to build and the many wonderful changes you're going to bring into the lives of people around this planet through your work. Congratulations. Please keep in touch. Thank you.
Great job. Great remark. Really proud of you. Take your box. I know you have to get going. Gotcha. Thank you. Wow. Thank you. I just, in case you were wondering, Julie does not have up here taped down any paper whatsoever. She did that 1 through 6 off the top of her head. I'm in awe of anybody who can get through 6 things. I do want to know what rule number 7 is, but we'll get to that later. Having now heard from a wonderful representative of the faculty, and I think all the family and friends who are here can now perhaps even more appreciate what this faculty is like, because we have many, many, many Julie Schaffners on this faculty, all at that quality point. This year the students picked her and we're proud of her.